it's super, super important, super timely, and I thank you for being here and supporting our school. And first and foremost, our mission is to keep all of our kids safe in every way, shape, and form. And we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it seems like there really is this epidemic rising with vaping. And I can think of no other parents that are more critical to target than middle school parents. Because luckily, our numbers here at the middle school aren't too bad, but at the high school, they jump up, and we'll be talking about it a little bit. But we're really, really super pleased to have Tina Grosowski, who is the project coordinator for the Central Mass Tobacco-Free Community Partnership, which she works out of UMass Medical School. Super, super well-informed, a wealth of information to share with us about everything that you wanted to know and things that you wouldn't even think of knowing about vaping. So I'll turn it over to you, Tina.
Thank you so much. So I can talk like this, or I can use the microphone. And is this good for
Yeah,
your
actually,
taping?
Yeah, for the purpose of the video, yeah, it's probably helpful.
Great. So thanks for coming out tonight. Again, my name is Tina Grosowski. I coordinate the Central Mass Tobacco-Free Community Partnership. And I invite you tonight to listen to this not only with your parent hat on, but also your resident hat where you live. And I'm assuming most of you are here in Mendon, but you never know, maybe not. So I have a PowerPoint here that I'm going to run off of. Please feel free to ask me questions as we go along. All this information is on a website called Get Outraged, which is the material that you saw that was on the table in the hallway. You can go online and download all these materials from the website. And what we're talking about is the new look of nicotine addiction. The Central Mass Tobacco-Free Community Partnership works on reducing smoking and secondhand smoke in Central Mass. But high school students and middle school students are not smoking, which is a great thing. But they are vaping, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. What's going on now? How do we get here? What is the industry doing, which is a lot? What are the policies and procedures that are already in place that have been helping to reduce some of this, but what else needs to be done? And we're going to talk about that at the local level, the statewide level, and what role you can play in that. And please feel free to ask any questions as we go along. So we have some data, as Joe said. The problem with this data is that it was taken in the spring of 2017 from the state surveys. The spring in 2017 was before a lot of this activity and purchasing and buying and using of the electronic cigarettes, mostly the Juul, but lots of other vaping products, happened in the fall and Christmas time of 2018. So you have to kind of get your mind back at that period of time a year ago. So this data is low. We probably think probably more like 15% of middle school students are using some kind of vaping device on a regular basis, and maybe 20-25% have ever tried. And do you have middle school data too there?
At current, we have 9.2% of our students at NISCO have tried a vaping device at some point in their life, and 5.4% say that they are current users.
So that's great. So it's a little bit lower than the state average, so that's good news. So high school, about the same. Again, lower numbers than what we think is actually true. Probably 25-30% are using it on a regular basis. 40 to 45% have ever tried electronic cigarettes in your high school.
So at our high school for 2018, 47% of kids say that they've tried it at least once in their life. 34% say that they're current users.
Right.
So a little more than 1/3.
So again, that's probably current numbers. That's a little bit, so that's current because they just did the survey here. A little, again, higher than these numbers. So again, this is not a Mendon problem. It's not a Central Mass problem. It's not a Massachusetts problem. This is a national epidemic, is what the Surgeon General called it in January. So the rates for 2018 went up about 75% nationwide. We're going to talk about how and why that's happened. What we're talking about is electronic cigarettes. All electronic cigarettes, and I have some products here tonight which I'll hold up, and you're welcome to come afterward and take a look at the stash that I have. These are all bought. I didn't confiscate it, but I'm sure the high school principal has a lot in his drawer in the office that you can look at if you need to. So all electronic cigarettes have a battery, and they all have a cartridge of nicotine in a formulation of propylene glycol. That's the one big takeaway from tonight. The nicotine is not in water vapor. It's in propylene glycol, which is like a vegetable oil substance. And it's like when you use a spray pan on your skillet at home when you cook. The skillet's hot, you spray it on, and it kind of heats up, and the aerosolized oil evaporates up. So that's what happens when you turn on the battery, and it heats up the aerosolized, the oil, and then you inhale it to get the nicotine. There's lots of different names for the products. The kids have all kinds of abbreviations and nicknames that they make up for stuff. And then after the Juul, which we'll talk about, which is the biggest, most popular, and most successful, most popular electronic cigarette, once the industry saw how much money was to be made from it, they started making their own, and the knockoffs are the Bow, the Blue, and there's many other different kinds. And again, I have products up here. These are all different shapes and sizes of electronic cigarettes, vaping devices, and you can see they come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. Disposable e-cigarettes are what young teens were using. They're not anymore. That's not cool. Vape pens on the right are used to vape liquid THC, which, as you know, is the active ingredient in marijuana. The kids also call them dab pens. They come with the cartridges of THC already in them, or you buy the liquid THC in cartridges at the vape shop or online. And they're very accessible for young people. Young people know how to get them and know where to buy them. Again, on the left, the big tank systems. High school students are not sitting in the back of classrooms pretty typically using these. These are for adults. They cost a lot of money, and you got to get them at the vape shop, where you have to be 21. What they are using is the rechargeable e-cigarettes, mostly known as the Juul, the one on the right. The one on the left is the Bow, and it has a sleeve on it, so you can get accessories to decorate your vape pens and make them look colorful and cool. So the Juul itself, as you can see here, actually looks like a flash drive itself. And that's partly why it's so appealing to young people. It itself looks like a flash drive, okay? On the bottom of it has a magnetic strip that then you have the charging device, and I know I'm holding this up and you're far away, but it looks itself like a USB, okay? Except that it has two little orange prongs on the inside of it, which are magnetized, so when you put the Juul in, it snaps in there and magnetizes it in, and then like you can see in the picture, you put it in your laptop or computer and you charge it up. When it's charged up, it's ready to go. You don't have to turn it on and off, so again, it's high tech. Then it comes with what are called the flavor pods. You can see in the slide, there's 4 of them that come with a kit, and you just pop the flavor pod right in the top, and it's ready to go. Okay? The flavor pod is what has the formulation of propylene glycol with the nicotine in it, this happens to be a mint flavor. You can see the green one up there. It comes with a green top, so you know it's mint. Mint is a very popular flavor for Juul because it's kind of very smooth and it helps create a more flavorful draw. The other thing about the nicotine is, so all of this is high tech. For young people, this is like having an iPhone 10. It's like the latest, coolest thing that delivers a big, good rush of nicotine. It was designed for adults to help them quit smoking. The nicotine is called nicotine salts. It's a formulation that goes to the brain really quickly and gives a good, big hit of nicotine real fast. The kind of nicotine that is in the Juul is, again, equivalent to a pack of cigarettes in each of the Juul pod. So each one of those little pods, that flavored pods that I showed you, is the equivalent of about a nicotine as a pack of cigarettes. Young people tell us that they're going through a pod a day of the Juul, maybe into a second pod at nighttime. You know, it's very popular to share your Juul, go into the bathroom and share it. So that could be distributed among a couple of kids, but that's what young people are telling us. So that's a pack of cigarettes worth of nicotine a day, which is a lot for an adolescent. It's a lot for an adult, but it's really a lot for adolescents, especially because their brains are still growing. As you can see, there's lots of kinds of e-liquids, e-juices, but young people aren't sitting in the back of math class with a drip bottle, a dropper dripping anything in. They're using the pods because they're really high-tech and quick and easy. You can slip them right in to your Juul. There's lots of new and emerging products all the time coming out. The one on the bottom right, the Soren, is very popular, but you have to drip in the juice. In the middle, what looks like a cell phone, that's an e-cigarette. And then there's lots of knockoffs as well. Maybe you've heard, but the FDA did just approve, I forgot to mention this afternoon, what's called an IQOS. It's a new cigarette, so it's got tobacco. It's a cigarette, not an e-cigarette, that heats up the tobacco until the nicotine is released. But it's not so hot that it catches fire and burns. So this is a new FDA product. They've approved it for sale. They haven't approved it for use or say it's safe or that it does anything that they put their stamp of approval on, but they've said, well, you can go out and sell it. So that's a new product that's coming to the market. Again, it's a cigarette with tobacco in it that's heated up. It's not an electronic device, which is what we're talking about tonight. So that's what's in the nicotine is in the propylene glycol. So we got the nicotine, we got the propylene glycol when it's heated up. The problem with propylene glycol is what's happening to the oil. The oil is in many junk foods. We eat it, we digest it because there's acid in your stomach. But when you inhale propylene glycol and it's going into your lungs, then that aerosolized oil is going into your lungs with nothing to mitigate it. It's just dripping down slowly, slowly, slowly. In the short term, the research shows it does cause pneumonias, bacterial infections. We don't know the long-term effect because these products haven't been around for a long time. We know the long-term effect of combustible tobacco, right? Everybody knows somebody who's been affected by tobacco-related illness. Then the other thing that's really concerning that's in them is how do they get this flavor, okay? Young people tell us that they're really popular is because they're so flavorful. How do they get this flavor? Is this, fancy mango juice from Market Basket? They get it from using a chemical. The chemical is called diacetyl. Diacetyl used to be used in microwave popcorn. Have you ever heard of popcorn lung? Popcorn lung is a syndrome that got named to what the microwave popcorn workers were experiencing because they were getting sick from the heated diacetyl that they used to make that incredible buttery flavor in microwave popcorn. The FDA came in and said, okay, no more, you can't use diacetyl in microwave popcorn, but where are they using it? In all of these electronic cigarette devices because they're not regulated by the FDA at all except for age restriction. These are not regulated. As bad as cigarettes are for us, they're stamped and approved by the FDA. Each cigarette has to be the same as the next. Each pack has to be the same as the next. All the same, 5,000 chemicals and carcinogens that is in each cigarette is approved, okay? None of this goes through any kind of approval process. So that's a really important piece of information when you're talking to young people, that the industry is manufacturing, marketing, and promoting these products that are not approved. So you have the diacetyl and you have the propylene glycol. And then there's the nicotine. Okay, lots of nicotine in these. That's the addictive substance. And with the young person, the nicotine is going into the brain as the brain grows. We know from all the research on smokers that if you started smoking when you were 11, 12, 13, it's much harder to quit when you get to be an adult. And because your brain is growing along with the nicotine. The nicotine adheres to the neurotransmitters, adheres to the receptors in the brain, to the reward system, right, of the brain that then fires off, and the brain said, oh, this feels really good. Have you ever eaten one M&M? No, because it doesn't matter what it is, salt, fat, sugar, caffeine, it fires up, it goes to the reward system of the brain, and pretty soon your hand's back in that buttery popcorn bag or into the M&M bag, and half the bag is gone. Because your brain fires up really quickly and says, I want more of this. That's what addiction is, when it goes to the brain and starts teaching the brain how to become addicted, and that's what nicotine use in adolescence does. It teaches the brain to become addicted. And it's not good for young people's brains because when they use a lot of nicotine, if you're going to the bathroom every hour in school, when you come back to class, your brain is all fired up. You get a buzz from nicotine, and then you can't really concentrate or focus, pay attention, follow directions, all the things that make you a good student, and certainly you want your children to be. So that's the negative effects of nicotine. And certainly we're concerned about other going on to use regular combustible cigarettes because research shows that is definitely a possibility, as well as now liquid THC. Because again, the products are driving this behavior so much because now young people can buy liquid THC really easily and use it in school. The liquid THC that's used in the vape pens has no smell. It's not like college going to a concert with marijuana and people smoking joints, okay? You go into the bathroom, it has kind of a fruity smell, musky smell a little bit. It does not smell like marijuana. So either the nicotine or liquid THC, it's very enticing then in school to be able to do this right under the noses of administration or, teachers. That's what makes it so exciting too, right, for young people. They can get away with it. What could be a better product? So most kids don't know that there's a lot of nicotine and other carcinogens that are getting released with these products. They think it's just flavoring. We know they're not safe for pregnant women. We know the secondhand vape has a lot of nicotine in it. Again, this is not secondhand smoke. There's nothing burning, but there is secondhand vape does have trace carcinogens and nicotine in it. Again, the secondhand vape sort of smells fruity. It could be in the bathroom, it could be the soap, it could be someone's perfume, it could be the cherry lip balm, that, the chapstick that someone just put on. So it's very, again, user-friendly. So that's all about the products. Any questions? You may have some later. So what about the industry? What do we know about the tobacco industry? Well, we know a lot, right? They've spent billions of dollars marketing, advertising for years, and lying to the public about what's in the products. When I was growing up, you can see on my gray hair in the 50s, between every cartoon on Saturday morning, there was a commercial for cigarettes. Couples walking down the beach, looking ecstatic, like you couldn't have a better life if you were just a smoker, right? And they tricked millions of people and got millions of people hooked on nicotine, and we know the health consequences of that. All the people have died, and all of generations, your grandparents probably, who were affected by tobacco-related diseases. They're doing the same thing now, spending billions of dollars on advertising, targeting young people where they are, which is on the internet, on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, using marketing and tactics to make the ads appealing, associating the products with all the things that they used to do, making them look cool and sexy and fun. And the ultimate American value is what I say, which is freedom. The Marlboro Man, do you remember the Marlboro Man, or hearing about the Marlboro Man? It was the most successful branding campaign in the United States, up there with Coca-Cola, Dove soap, right up there with all of that branding that we've all grown up with, right? Well, young people look at these images and then marketing and say, well, that's for me, right? Looking blissful, the young girl on the left, and having a sense of freedom, which is what every adolescent wants, remember that. And the group of girls on the right having bonding, having a group experience with their jewel. The most important developmental task of an adolescent is to separate from their parents. And how do you do that? You join a group, right? Back in the day when you were all in high school, there was the kids who smoked, and they were those kids, right? This phenomenon with technology-driven products, it's all across the board of spectrum of teenagers. It's not those kids who were the smokers. It's all types of kids. And especially the research shows what we call the popular kids, right? Band, cheerleading, football, theater maybe, because it's popular to have this device. Again, it's like having an iPhone 10 as opposed to having an Android. Who wants an Android? Anybody here have an Android anymore? Good for you. You're holding out. It's better than a flip phone, right? But for a teenager, you want to have the latest, coolest thing. And you want to belong to the group that's using the latest, coolest thing. And that's a jewel. So again, lots of advertising, making their products sweet, cheap, and easy to get. Lots of flavorings, and lots of marketing with the flavorings, and then making them really cheap. So remember I talked about at the beginning about 2017, the data, and how all of a sudden there was a big spike in 2018. And that was because the companies were starting to offer starter kits really cheap. They were giving away a lot of coupons. And then in Christmas of 2017, all the teenagers got their gift cards from Grandma and Aunt Susie and Mom and Dad at Christmas time. And they could go online to the Jewel website, put in a birth date, put in their gift card number, put in the address, hit click, and get the kits sent to your house. With your lunch money, somebody else's lunch money, with a gift card, you may get 2 or 3 kits, and then you can go to school and you can sell your kit. So you could actually make a little bit of money and develop some entrepreneurial skills. That's what was happening in January, February of 2018, and then we've seen since the explosion of use of all these products. So the industry was marketing and making them cheap, and again, remember, there's the 4 flavor pods, that each pod is equivalent in nicotine tobacco cigarettes. The 4 flavor pods, if you go to the store and buy them in the 4-pack, you can't buy a single. You have to buy them in a pack, $10, $12 for the 4 pods. A pack of cigarettes is $10 to $12. So you're getting $40, 4 packs of cigarettes worth of nicotine for $10 to $12. So that's what makes them cheap, okay? When we say cheap. So they're easy to get, especially online, like I just described to you, right? On Jewel, on Amazon. And then in the convenience stores in Massachusetts, all the products have to be behind the counter, but they are at eye level so that the industry gets product placement. So when kids go buy the chips and the gum and chapstick at eye level, they're seeing all the product, and that's worth a lot of money to the industry. And it normalizes the sale of it. Mom and Dad can go into the convenience store, buy a carton of eggs or a gallon of milk when you fill up at the store. Again, young people go into these stores and they see the products and they shop, and they can get educated about them. So the good news is that in Massachusetts, at least in last summer, town by town, over the past couple of years, towns were putting in restrictions on youth access, raising the age to 21 for sales, banning the sale of tobacco in pharmacies, so that enough towns passed them that the legislators took it up last summer and passed it as a bill and raised the age in Massachusetts, which started this past January, to 21, and banned the sale of all tobacco products at the pharmacies. It also includes vaping where the smoke-free workplace law is. So where you can't smoke now, you can't vape. Because back in 2004, when the smoke-free workplace law was put into effect, there wasn't vaping. So now that's included in vaping. So that's the state laws. what we're hoping is that many towns now have passed what's called the flavor restriction. And we're hoping that even though the FDA is proposing to ban the sale of all these products in convenience stores, they haven't done it yet. They're just saying that they would like to do it. In Massachusetts, over 100 communities have already put in a flavor restriction where you have to sell all of these flavored products from an adult-only store, which means a vape shop or an adult tobacconist, of which there's not many around. That's why so many vape shops have been opening up. One of the reasons, because when towns pass the flavor restriction, they can sell all the flavored products instead of at the convenience stores. But you have to be 21 to go into a vape shop. Any kid can go into a convenience store. So it really restricts the access of these products to young people. The FDA also banned the online marketing on social media for all these products. So Instagram had to Juul and these other companies had to shut down their Instagram, their social media accounts, so they can no longer advertise. What can you do? What can we do? What else needs to be done? The state developed this website this winter with all this information on it, getoutreach.org. There's a school toolkit with lots of information for schools, administrators, and principals. And it has a nice section on it on health curriculum. There's a new 4-session vaping prevention curriculum called Catch My Breath. Catch is the educational outfit out, I'm not sure where it is, Midwest maybe. All this material is available for free. The most important thing is that we all talk to our kids about this, which is, of course, a big challenge. As you're finding out, if you didn't have older kids, how many of you have older teens? And how many of you are, this is your oldest kids are here in middle school? Yeah, so you're finding out, this is like this nice window, like the superintendent was talking about. They still trust you, they still like you in middle school, they're still willing to listen, and it changes because the brain changes, right? It's all about brain science and brains are changing. So you want to talk to them about the facts about these products, like we talked about, what's really in them. You want to talk about dispelling the myths. It's not water vapor with some, juice in it. And the most important thing is how the vaping and the tobacco industry is targeting them to use these products, just like they were targeting your grandparents, your parents, your great-grandparents, aunts and uncles in the 50s, 60s, 70s, before that Surgeon General warning went on to cigarette packs in 1964. Because they're doing exactly the same thing. Young people will listen to their parents, even though they act like they're not. And young people really respond to messages and conversations about social justice, right? Look at all the kids that are talking about the environment now and about gun safety. They'll listen to you if you talk to them about how it's not fair that the industry is targeting them to spend their money to start using these products. So they will respond to that. So talking with kids is really important. There's new information from the website on Get Outraged. We have high school students that we train. Many high schools have chapters of what's called the 84 movement. 84 stands for the 84% of high school students that did not smoke cigarettes when this organization was started back in 2008. It's now 92% high school students don't smoke, right? We talked about that before. They get trained in leadership skills and public speaking, and we really rely on them to educate their own peers and adults in their community. And they go to the State House. You can see them marching on the Common, and they talk to the state legislators, and they were the ones who worked hard over the past 3 years to get the legislators to pass those new laws to raise the age to 21 and the pharmacy ban. Now, they just went to the State House in March, and they talked to the legislators about the flavor restriction, and hoping we'll get that passed statewide. Finally, we have a year's worth now of young people who are addicted to nicotine. Back in the day when kids were smoking, we trained school nurses in smoking cessation. But school nurses are not asking to be trained in smoking cessation for the past, 7 or 8 years because kids aren't smoking. Now they're asking for vaping cessation training. So UMass Medical School is developing a protocol. We're doing some pilot testing this summer, and hopefully by the fall, we'll have a manual for school nurses to use to help kids quit nicotine. It's difficult. Nicotine is a very addictive drug. So the Truth Initiative is a great organization. They came up with a texting-based, app-based, on the phone system to help kids get off nicotine, because that's where kids are. They're on their phones. They can get text messages from a trained cessation specialist. They can get motivational messaging. How are they going to get through the day at school without using the Juul and getting off of nicotine? So we'll see. This is new territory. We hope that it helps them. And if you are a parent, Smoke Free Teen is the government website. Again, it's about smoking. Kids are not smoking anymore. If you think that your child is addicted to nicotine, the first thing I would say is, of course, you want to talk to your pediatrician. You want to talk to the school nurse. And you want to help them understand that what addiction is. Most kids in this country think of addiction as what they see on TV and in the movies, which is usually a man lying on the street with a needle, right? They don't think of these products as addiction. They don't think going to the bathroom every hour is addiction. It's like a fun social thing to do. But then they find out they leave their Juul at home, and by the third hour, they're like, starting to have anxiety, symptoms. Nurses report, symptoms that look like panic attacks. Kids vaping liquid THC have lots of nausea, and masked as something else. Parents going through lots of doctor's visits trying to figure out what's wrong with their kid with a stomach problem or infection, and it's liquid THC. It's vaping lots of liquid THC. So it's really important to help them get some cessation information and help them get off of nicotine or THC, but that might require some more counseling. So what can you do in your town? What's the action steps is finding out if your town has a flavor restriction or not. On the Make Smoking History website, which is the state website for tobacco, everything related to tobacco, there's a drop-down menu you can put your town in and see if you have the flavor restriction. If you don't, and you would like to see it in your town, you can talk to the Board of Health, tell them you're concerned about these products in your local convenience stores. You can call me or email me to get help with the process. We have technical assistance for people who are in towns that are not funded for tobacco-related compliance checks and ordinance changes. So that's Make Smoking History. And we have a new youth campaign that just started about 3 weeks ago. The main messaging is that these are different products, but it's the same dangers, okay? We want them to associate vaping with cigarettes. It's mostly an online campaign because that's where they are, social media campaign, but we do have some posters and some things that can be ordered through the website. We want them to understand it's addictive because of the nicotine and that there's cancer-causing chemicals that are in all the vapes. So it's different products, same dangers. And again, posters, mirror clings, because that's what's cool if you're a teenager, but with these messages on them. Tobacco Free Mass is a statewide advocacy organization for like American Lung, American Heart, but American Teachers Association, Mass School Nurses Association. This is the advocacy organization for statewide laws. Anybody can join it. It's a great organization, and there's my contact information. You nodding? Any questions? Yeah.
Is there, you talk about flavored products.
Right.
Is there any flavored products that don't have nicotine?
So they all have some nicotine. If you go to a vape shop, what they try to do is set themselves up as smoking cessation specialist. They want to say to you, you coming in here because you want to quit smoking, so we're going to get you set on the vapes. And if you smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, that's about 24, 30 milligrams of nicotine that you're getting a day. So we're going to sell you this little bottle of e-liquid juice with 24 milligrams of nicotine in it. And so you go all out and you use that for a couple of weeks and then you come back. And then we'll reduce it down to 17. Come back in 3 weeks, we'll reduce it down. So eventually, what they're saying is that we'll give you liquid nicotine that has no, liquid juice that has no nicotine in it. First of all, why would they sell a product with no nicotine? Because the whole idea is to get you to come back and buy more products. They all have some kind of flavor in it, that's their attractiveness. But you go to the vape shop, you can pick from 1,000 flavors. The Juul, which is the most popular among teenagers, they all have, again, each flavor pod as much nicotine as a pack of cigarettes. And it says that right on the packaging. But again, these are not regulated. They can say anything they want on the package. It doesn't have to meet what's actually on the inside of the product. Exactly. How do you know it has no nicotine? So when your 15-year-old says, don't worry, Dad, I just use the cherry flavor ones, and the ones I use have no nicotine in them. And you're going to say, really? Now, how do you know that? Well, it says right on the package, right here, no nicotine. Then you say, well, these products are not regulated by the FDA, so how do you know what's on the outside of this package?
Well, one of your shots said 2/3 of kids think that flavor ones don't have nicotine.
Exactly.
That's the people we're worried about.
That's
You're
right.
saying that's just not true.
It's absolutely not true. Exactly, absolutely not true. Why would the tobacco industry, the whole point of the tobacco industry is to make money for its shareholders, right? That's the whole point of the industry, returning value for the shareholders. That means lots of money. Why would you make a product that's not addictive? The whole point is to make a product that is got nicotine in it because they want to hook young people. When they released all their documents, when they had the 1998 master settlement, the attorney general sued the industry back in 1998, and the result of that was they had to release all their documents, and in the documents it said, we want their lips. We need young people to start using products to guarantee our value base, whatever the lingo is for making lots of money, It was all in the legal documents that came out from the court. So that's the piece for young people to understand as why they're being targeted. So they're already, the industry is already looking at, what's the next thing coming out? Like I just said, this new product that's the heat not burn, the IQOS product. Because they see that vaping, teenagers, it's only going to go so far, hopefully, with all of this restrictions and regulations and education. So they got to make something else that is supposedly safer than combustible cigarettes.
Are the vaping companies like Juul and the others, are they owned by federal powers?
Exactly.
They're all owned by the state.
Well, Juul started off by these two high-tech guys in Silicon Valley, but in January, Philip Morris, which is the big tobacco company, bought 35% of Juul. Right. So they get product placement, they get all the knowledge that the industry has developed over 45 years of lying, and putting it all towards our kids is what they're doing. And look how successful they've been this past year. Kids bought it hook, line, and sinker. But they're starting to get it. Kids that we're hearing, kids are starting to get it, what the addiction piece is, and, the coolness of it and the techness of it. And then, unfortunately, they actually grow up a little bit, they go off to college. It's a big problem on college campuses. But eventually, hopefully, they do grow up and they get out and they stop using. But we'll see, because this is a new phenomenon, right? But yes, that's the problem.
I think, if I could add, I think education is the key. I think there's less stigma with this product.
Right.
Growing up in the 70s and smoking cigarettes, that, you know, it would have a smell and so on. I think your point is a great one as far as it isn't, you know, quote unquote, those kids.
Right.
You know, I know back in my day in the 80s, the kids that were the smokers, at least in my cohort, you know, not to be a snob or anything, but they were kind of the losers.
Absolutely.
And I've had conversations with parents, great parents, good people, smart people, who are under the perception that somehow vaping is not as dangerous as cigarette smoking, or you know, it was nothing more than vapor, flavored vapor, or the mindset of, well, you know, there's so many other worse things that my son or daughter can be into. This really isn't that big of a deal. And this is coming from smart, well-intentioned, great parents, professionals. So I do think the education piece is really key.
Right, it's really important. We need to educate all of us have to be educated about it. And the piece about the flavoring, we raise our kids on flavor so much in this country. Flavored cereal, right? Fruit Loops, Cocoa Puffs, you know, it's not, most houses, it's not cornflakes, you know. Flavored Jell-O, flavored yogurt. And when your kid has that first ear infection and you go to the pediatrician and you get the amoxicillin and you go to CVS and you get it filled, what flavor is that amoxicillin? Bubble gum. So even medicine is flavored. We're telling our kids if it's medicine and it's flavored, it's good for you, right? So if something's flavored, it can't be bad for you. And, you know, they see grown-ups using it. And again, people have the perception that it is less harmful than combustible cigarettes, which is true, as far as we know so far. There's nothing on fire, there's nothing combusting and burning, and that's what causes the tar that causes the lung cancer that, you know, millions of people have died from and are still dying from rates to this day. The people who are in their 70s, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s. Or even people who quit smoking when they were in their 50s, you know, in the 60s, when the Surgeon General, someone was just talking about this afternoon, when the Surgeon General came out in 64 that all warnings have to be on cigarette packages, you know, a lot of smart people woke up and said, quit. My parents did, you know, eventually when I was in my 20s, and then I quit. But if you didn't quit and you smoked for another 20 years and then maybe you quit, you're still going to get COPD when you get into your, you know, 70s or 80s. And especially people with substance abuse issues. You know, that's a big epidemic right now. But even if, you know, you weren't ever involved with opioids, if you were in AA, or if you yourself or someone in your family, you know, is in recovery, long-term recovery, but you still smoked, you have more of a chance of dying from COPD and lung cancer than you do from anything related to alcohol, because you didn't quit smoking. So, you know, it's a serious issue of perception, and that's the thing about perception. It is less harmless than combustible cigarettes, but it's not harmless. And we don't know over the long term what the long-term effects are.
That was my question.
Yeah, we don't know, because we don't have any science yet. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Are there any resources that would help you identify if your child is addicted to nicotine? I'm thinking, you know, they have easier access in school, but at home maybe it's not so easy to bring it home because you have, you know, more vigilant parents or whatever. Would they be going through some sort of withdrawal between, you know, coming home from school and the next thing? How would you be able to identify that? I have a moody teenager, so I just don't know how to identify withdrawal or her just being mad.
Absolutely. How do you tell? Again, it can mask anxiety symptoms. I look through the backpacks, check their pockets. I talk to them, ask them about it. You know, not in a pejorative way or blaming way, obviously, but you know, starting off. Oh, I went to this talk tonight. What are your friends saying about this? Do your friends, you know? Oh yeah, I went to Johnny's house after the soccer game and for the spaghetti dinner, and you know, Sam's passing one around, and we all tried it, and, you know, the cherry was pretty good, you know. Well, you know, what is in those? Have you heard what's in those products? When you're riding around with the kids in the back of the car and you pass the vape shop, oh, look at that new vape shop, you know, wonder what they're selling in there. So you want to have the conversation a lot, many different places, like with any other drug, right? You don't just have one talk. You all know that, right? You're talking about it all the time and saying what you think about it. Doesn't sound to me like these are something that you would want to be using. They say it's not as bad as cigarettes, but you know, we don't know the long term. How do they know it's even in them? So you start a conversation, and hopefully not, but at least you've had the conversation, you've opened the door in a non-pejorative, judgmental way. That's the main thing, so that they can come back to you when they tried the THC and they have a stomach ache. Oh, Mom, you know, I tried this and my stomach's killing me now, or whatever. We had I gave a presentation last week at UMass to the residents, pediatric residents, about 40 of them, and one of them said to me, I think she was down at Tri-River actually, down at Tri-River in Uxbridge, and she said, well, there was this young boy who came in and he had pneumonia, and when they did the culture, they discovered it was some really unusual culture, and they figured out it was because he'd been using a vape pen. And they've started to see that they have viruses that can grow in the vape pens. Maybe you saw that article that came out recently, but just go home and Google it. Viruses in vape pens. And sure enough, it was a really virulent form of pneumonia because he'd been using a vape pen. So that was a real thing that happened. You have a question?
It's 21, you have to be 21 to buy one.
That's right.
So some of the towns are moving them to just strictly vape shops.
That's
You have
right.
to be 21 to buy them.
That's the flavor restriction.
Right, but is there any data that supports that moving them to vape shops is reducing kids?
Yes, so in Boston did this a couple of years ago. First of all, the sales of all these products dropped enormously because the teens weren't able to access them. So that's been in place now 2 years, so that data comes from Boston. You know, these other towns, a lot of them, a year, you know, under a year that's been in place, so we don't have a lot of data, but Boston was the first. Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean they can't still get it. If they have somebody older than 21, just like alcohol, you know, but it does limit the access. That's the whole idea. The dream of people like me is to have everything in the adult-only stores, all the cigarettes. Now, cigarettes are still in the convenience stores, but all the cigarettes. And finally, the last thing I'll say is menthol, about menthol. So I told you mint was the most popular flavor for the vaping. Menthol cigarettes are a protected status in the industry. Back in 2009, the industry came to the government and said, we want to make flavored cigarettes. And the government said, oh, no, you cannot make flavored cigarettes. So the industry said, okay, but we'd like to keep menthol. And, you know, government said, okay, big nice, okay, you can keep menthol. Well, menthol makes it much easier to draw smoke way deep into your lungs. And it also is, they targeted certain populations of people with advertising, with mentholated cigarettes for years, especially African Americans, Latino Americans, LGBT, using, you know, celebrities, music events, movies, et cetera, So Latinos and African Americans have higher rates of lung cancer because they've drawn the tobacco into their lungs more than white people. So that is a huge racial disparity because of these mentholated products. So some communities, San Francisco was the first, said, okay, we're going to go against the industry, we're going to include menthol in this flavor restriction. So San Francisco was the first. Of course, they got sued, but they had lawyers who were taking on the fight. And now here in Massachusetts, we have a couple of towns that have taken on the industry and said, we're including menthol, and some of them, even mentholated cigarettes, have to be in the vape shops. And Somerville is one of them. So yay, Somerville. They have gotten sued, but that's okay. They've gone ahead with the restriction, and they've got lawyers who are working pro bono from an institute at Northeastern who are helping them. So that's the part about cigarettes, hopefully, eventually being in adult-only stores as well.
Has there been any decision on that, with that lawsuit?
Not
Against
yet,
Somerville?
no.
Because a lot of towns are putting that ban in queue, like Framingham, Ashland.
Yes.
So they're all just sitting tight on that until that comes through.
I know. And we're saying, go ahead anyway, we'll we'll go to court for you. But yes, they are waiting to see, hopefully soon. So, great questions. Go home and share with your families, with your neighbors who couldn't come tonight. If this is going to be broadcast on the website here at school and maybe hopefully on the cable TV. And if you have any smaller groups or your church group, or you belong to Kiwanis, or you'd like this for any other smaller group, I'd be glad to do it.